Well, I wanna know what shoes you have with that fit. Can I see the shoes?
I have socks. I have no shoes on with this fit because I always sit cross-legged when I'm sitting at my computer. Like, I literally just can't sit any other way. So I have no shoes on, but I usually wear it with, like, some Mac Daddy spiked heel stuff.
That's
So
what I
I
was
was wearing
wondering is if you had heels on. I was like, "Oh my gosh, if she has heels on, I'm gonna, like, just
yeah,
be, like, a super fan."
it's, like, one of my favorite outfits ever.
All right, well, let's get rolling.
Do it.
Welcome to Now, Making Moves in Real Estate. Today, we're celebrating our 50th episode. Yay! We've never missed a week. We have an extraordinary guest. She's a highly sought after international speaker, thought leader, author, mindset mentor, or master. As the founder of the High Vibe Life Company and co founder of the Energy Institute, she's transforming lives and helping high performers, which we have a lot of those listening today, unlock more income, impact, and influence. Known for her expertise on the impact of energy on high performance, she empowers women to live a high vibe life using scientifically based techniques. So, this intro is a little bit long, but I love it. So, I'm going to keep going. Now, the best selling author and host of the acclaimed The High Vibe Life podcast. She has transformed countless lives with her vision mapping method. Want to hear about that? Her journey from struggling addict to a seven-figure CEO and top performer in a $1 billion company is a testament to her exceptional ability to inspire success. Now she has spoken to hundreds of thousands, working alongside industry giants like Dean Graziasi, Brendan Burchard, who we know, and Bedros Keuilian, recognized as one of Success Magazine's women of influence, which is where I read about you. She's helped her clients generate tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So you're going to want to stay tuned to this episode for an inspiring conversation that will elevate your mindset and your business. Please help Courtney and I welcome Moira Kucaba to the show.
Hi. I am so
Welcome.
excited to be here. I wanna, like, jump in as you're saying all the things. I'm like, "We gotta talk about this, and we gotta talk about that," and yes, I mean, I am already lit up just with all of those topics, obviously, and we could go in a million different directions, but I'm just honored to be here and to be a guest on your show, and hopefully really not even hopefully, but I know that we're gonna leave your listeners with a lot of takeaways today, so I'm excited for this.
I don't think we could have got a more stellar guest for our 50th episode.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a huge honor, and congratulations to you guys. That's amazing.
Aw, thank you. Yeah, and here's the thing, like, not only is she, like, just got this crazy history, but I was telling her when we first hopped on here, like, she's got a solid fit on too.
I know, I love it. I love it. It's so cute. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, ladies.
Let's just, like, a little bit about your background because, like, how'd you get here? Let's just, hear a little bit about your journey on,
Yeah.
then and now.
Yeah, I love to share I love to share the journey because I feel like the biggest thing that we're up against a lot of times in the entrepreneurial space is belief, right? Belief in ourselves, belief in the dream, belief in these giant goals that we want to go after. And I think we separate ourselves from people that are really, really successful. You know, we find the leaders in our space that are in that top 1% or the top 0.001%. And we want that life and we want those goals and we want to be doing those things, right? But we immediately, and this is where kind of some neuroscience comes in, our brain immediately kind of finds the reasons why we can't, right? It's scary to think that. And our brain's always looking for threats and anything that's going to kind of be fearful for ourselves, right? So we're actually designed to go, well, you're probably not going to be able to do it because of this or that or this or that, or she's got a bigger influence than you do. She has bigger social media. She has the background. She has the skill set. And so if we're up against that, we usually have this huge gap between where we are and where we want to go. And that gap is really the belief, right? It's
Mhm.
the belief that is needed to take the action to get there. And so I just really want people to know that, like, Yes, my face has been in Times Square, but my face has always also been, like, face down in a ditch, not that long
Mhm.
ago. I mean, it was a while ago. I've been sober. I just celebrated 26 years of sobriety, but
Wow.
that's where I came from. Like, a girl that struggled, m to the brink of death. I mean, I was absolutely suicidal at the end of my addiction. I didn't know a way out. I was using around the clock. There was no it wasn't like a glamorous, end to my addiction. It was the as bad as you can imagine. And so if you come I always say, like, how does that person become the person that I am today, right? And if I can do it, I want you to know that you can do it too. And
Mhm.
so I really studied almost my own life initially to kind of figure out, like, at one point, I was like, "Holy crap. Like, what is that? What is happening? How did this happen? Like, how did I go from there to here?" Right?
Mhm.
Because at that point, I was mentoring a bunch of people, like hundreds of people, and I was coaching them. And so I needed to figure out what the recipe was. Like, what was the recipe for that success? And as I started to go, okay, I'm kind of figuring out exactly what I did to achieve this massive level, and then I started teaching other people. It wasn't just me. It
Mhm.
was person after person after person that I was coaching and mentoring that were then going on to duplicate that success over and over and over. So as I was coaching, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we are like massively onto something," right? So there kind of came a formula came up of like, okay, these are the things that are important. These are the things that we have to commit to if we
Mhm.
really wanna succeed at that crazy level that we all wanna succeed at, I think.
Mhm. Okay, so we wanna hear what those things are,
Yeah.
or a few of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah,
going.
well, I think, and I wanna go back. I said that I got sober 26 years ago, and I'll give you a little background too. I'm just an entrepreneur at heart. Like, I was, 10 years old, like, buying candy from the my mom's canteen at the hospital she worked at, and, like, I can remember,
All
like,
right.
setting the Butterfingers up, setting the like, I would open up a candy store and mark all the candy up and sell it to my
Mhm.
friends. So, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, that entrepreneurial hustle,
Houston here.
but I would say that 10 years ago, I took that at when I was in my mid to late 30s. I'm 47 now. When I was around mid to late 30s, I went from that like multiple six-figure entrepreneur to like boom, like 18 months hit seven figures and keep growing beyond and beyond and beyond. And so that was that window that I was like, what the heck happened? Like what just transpired, right? And so what I will say is this, and this is kind of a nugget I want you to take with you, is that the next level of your business is the next level of you. Like on the
Mhm.
inside, right? It's like the 2.0. I always say it's like we're cultivating the 2.0 version of you. That means like better habits, better mindset, better everything, right? A better body, better health. And so it's
Mhm.
that inside out journey that yes, I could teach business all day long. I love business. I don't love to teach business. It's just not my
Mhm.
favorite. It doesn't get me super excited. But where I love to teach is what comes at the foundation of business, because
Mhm.
I can teach you all the business strategies to get there. But if you don't have the mindset
Mhm.
and the habits, the productivity part, the
Mhm.
strategy means absolutely nothing.
Mhm. I couldn't
Absolutely
agree with you more.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so there comes like I always want to think about it in three parts. It's like, okay, we have to work on cultivating a mindset that is completely different. Like I will say the mind that I show up with in the world today interprets the world differently than it did 15 years ago,
Mhm.
perceives it differently. Today, and this is just a small example of how I've literally rewired my mind, is that I always use this example about, 5 years ago, a friend of mine, an acquaintance came up to me and somebody that I was kind of in a mentorship role with, or I was mentoring her, and she had tears in her eyes. And she was kind of like walking across this row in this big, like kind of auditorium towards me. And I could see this look of panic on her face and almost tears. And she was like searching me out. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What's going on? And she said, I got laid off. And I was like, oh, you did? And, like, I literally was like, "Oh my gosh, fix your face, Moira, fix your face," because my actual reaction today to what most people interpret as crisis,
Mhm.
as something horrible, as the market's down, that this I don't perceive it that way. And that is the reason I've been able to succeed at the level I've been able to succeed at, right? What is going right and what is going wrong is always available to every single one of us. What
Mhm.
are you choosing to perceive? I have rewired my brain to the point where it's almost impossible for me to see the negatives. Like people have to sometimes be like, hey, you got, do you not see this? I'm like, well, I guess you have a point, but, like, did you see all this opportunity? Do you see all the doors open? Like, when somebody says, "The market's saturated," I'm like, "So no one's ever gonna succeed in this industry for the next 500 years?" Like, that's the
Mhm.
most ridiculous thing ever. I'll give
Yeah.
you a perfect example of this and, of how I believe that most of the world perceives things. So I was working a business. I succeeded wildly back in the day in a network marketing business, and I had a big local team that I had built. And one of the girls I was mentoring lives in my hometown. And then I was also at the same day, I had one of my people that I was mentoring that lived 3,000 miles away on the other coast in California. And they both called me that morning and said, "Hey, I'm really struggling. Do you have time for a phone call?" Said, "Absolutely." And I lined up the phone calls back to back when I was at talk about productivity. I was like, "I
Mhm.
have a 30-minute drive to pick up my kids from school so I can talk to you at 2 and I can talk to you at 2:15." So I scheduled the calls. They both said the exact same thing, but opposites. The first one said, "Hey, I just don't think that this is ever gonna work for me because I live here where you live, where you've built such a huge team, where it's
Mhm.
totally saturated, where there's just nothing for me to have here, right? Like there's not one person in this town that hasn't worked with you, and so it's never gonna work for me." And she believed that, right?
Mhm.
We talk, I hang up the phone, I get on the call with the next girl that lives 3,000 miles away, and she says, "Hey, you know, nobody out here has ever heard of this. Nobody out here has ever done this. There's no way I will ever be successful out here. But if I lived where you lived, if I could be in your town,
Both.
I would be successful." And I just thought this is the most perfect example of how we see the world. It's
Mhm.
their perception, their nature of this is not going to work out for me. That's what their brains are looking for versus the opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so we have to learn how to condition our mind. So you guys said like what's the recipe? What are the tools? So I actually have it just so happens to be here. It's not I didn't just plan it there. It just happens to be on my desk, but it's called the Book of Proof and it's a journal that I wrote and I don't even like the word journal because I think it's too soft and I'm not a very soft person. I'm like let's freaking go, right? Let's rewire your brain. Let's crush some massive goals. So, this is a process though that I believe if you think about working out in the morning, right? We all
Mhm.
understand that like if we work out for 30 or 45 minutes every morning, like our muscles are going to grow. We're going to be in shape. We're going to change our body over time. Well, if you do the mental part of rewiring
Mhm.
your brain on a daily basis, it's not hard. You just put in the 10 minutes it takes and you go about your day. And what you don't understand is really happening is it's neuroplastic, right? It's neuroplasticity that's happening. You're rewiring, hardwiring your brain to perceive the world differently. So in this process, I just have you read your vision after you've written it out. I have you revisit your goals on a daily basis
Mhm.
because we don't know them. Like at the forefront of our mind, we have to bring them back to our attention every single day. So it's vision, goals, and then on a daily basis, you're looking for it's called the book of proof. So you're looking for actual proof that life is working for you. Because
Mhm.
again, the 99.99% think life is working against them, right? It's never
Mhm.
going to work out. The market's down, the market's saturated, the this or the that. When you start to just try to get your brain to actually find things that are working in to your benefit, right?
Mhm.
Perfect example. Yesterday, I was lining up something and I did not mean to line up this like 24-hour help. And I meant to just, I was like, let's do this for 12 hours. And they thought I meant 2 12-hour shifts. And I would
Mhm.
never have said that when I planned it. So it was a miscommunication. And then it actually ended up working out beautifully because I actually needed the 2 12-hour shifts. And I was like, that seems like magical to me. You know what I mean? I was like, there was this beautiful miscommunication that I see as almost a miracle versus a lot of people would have stepped into that conversation and gotten angry and gotten irritated and said, "You didn't hear me right. This was a miscommunication," and just gone negative. And when you're in and we'll step just for a moment into the energy, right? So I believe and I teach that there's this spectrum, right? Joy and love and all of those beautiful emotions are at the top. When we're kind of just bored and neutral, that's somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. And at the bottom is fear and desperation and depression, right? And so you have to check in with yourself because it's my belief that when we're up here in this higher frequency, we attract every miscommunication. That's going to work in our favor. We attract the phone call. We attract the person that says, "Hey, you need to talk to Courtney. You need to talk to Michelle. She's the one that can do this for you." Right? Like all of these magic moments, those aren't just random beautiful one-time, two-time things that happen to us. When you live up here, when you live in an energy and a frequency of the world just works out in my favor. Like magic happens every time. You attract those things into your life
Mhm.
every single moment of every single day.
Mhm.
Like my whole world, my family, my friends, my coworkers, everyone's always like laughing and rolling their eyes because they're like, it is insane what works out for Moira. And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, because
Because
that's
it
what I'm
always
doing.
does.
Because it always does. It always
Mhm.
does. But it's because I'm not interpreting negative things as negative because I don't interpret the world that way, right? So there's a process here of where you're rewiring your brain. And this is kind of the mindset work, right? But again, it's not just soft mindset work. We're talking about rewiring, right? It's plastic that's happening in your mind. So there's a lot of neuroscience there that I've studied and I have a, certification in neurolinguistic programming and all of that. But then there's this other piece of like, let's be productive too. Like we have to kind of study productivity and habits. And so one of the other questions that on a daily basis this asks you is what are the three most important things to do today?
Mhm.
And it sounds
Mhm.
so small and so silly, but if we all actually woke up and got clear on what the 3 needle movers were in our
Mhm.
business or our life, and we did those before 10 a.m.,
Mhm.
we would succeed a hundredfold of
Mhm.
where we are now.
Mhm.
Because what we're not even conscious of is that we can grind and work and hustle all day and not actually touch the 3 most important things that are the biggest needle movers, right?
For
And
sure.
so we have to understand some of those productivity pieces to really take it to that next level.
Mhm.
So I know
Mhm.
that was a really long answer to your first question.
No, great. Well, our real estate agents, I think when she was talking about like all of those excuses, it's like, well, I can't get a listing because I don't have the experience. And Courtney has, 20 years in the market and she's got the bulk of the market. So I'll never be successful there. Or, I mean, you could probably come up with a number of excuses that real
But
estate
how did
agents.
Courtney succeed in the beginning? Like we
Mhm.
were all exactly where you are. Like there
Mhm.
if we had used those excuses, we would have never gotten there, you know? And
Mhm.
so that's a mindset piece. And that's why I love this because it's not only rewiring your belief in what's possible, it's rewiring your belief in yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the other questions, daily questions, is what am I proud of myself for? And it
Mhm.
is amazing how hard that can be for some people. I mean, I have literally coached CEOs of, $100 million businesses that are like, they literally can't find one thing that they can write down that they're proud of themselves for.
Wow.
And it's because we have conditioned our brains to not see that or not look for it or not
Mhm.
search for it. And so people always ask me, they're like, how do you have so much confidence? Two things. I do the morning work to build the confidence. Like I have to look at what am I proud of myself for yesterday? What do I need to give myself credit for? And if you do that 365 days in a row, you're going to start to build confidence, right? But
Mhm.
when you go into your day and you start executing on the 3 most important things and you
Mhm.
start to see the world differently, Well, you start to achieve more. Confidence comes from action. Confidence doesn't come from listening to a podcast or reading a book. Confidence only comes from action. It comes from achieving one little goal and going, holy crap, look what I did. And you're giving yourself credit and you build that belief so you can go a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. We did not have the confidence that we have way back in the beginning. We built it brick by brick along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this workbook that you're holding up for those of our listeners that are listening, not watching, is that something we can buy from your website or is that
Yeah.
like,
Well,
okay.
I'll give you guys the link. You can easily get it on Amazon. So I'll make sure you guys have that for sure.
I know I'm going to get a copy. This is right up our alley. Yeah. I have to tell you, like, I know it's a little personal, but something that you shared on your podcast resonated with me because I remember there being a moment not that long ago when I was driving to Stanford University and I was crying and I was sad and I was like, oh, I'll get emotional just thinking about it. Courtney knows my journey. But I was like really scared and struggling. And I remember thinking in my head, like, what would I tell my daughter right now?
Mm,
You know? And I switched it in my head of like,
yeah.
"Oh my god, like, I get to go to this doctor's appointment
Yes.
and see the freaking best doctor in the country, if not the world, and, like, the best equipment and the best
Yes.
treatment," and I got all excited, and I just, like, flipped the script and went from, like, just right now, like, kinda tearing up to
Yeah.
being, like, excited
Yeah.
about my appointment, and I know you talk about that in your recent podcast, and it is so compelling and true, like, what happened to me in that moment. Granted, I didn't listen to a podcast or I got that in my gut of, like, how would I coach my daughter in these
Yeah.
feelings, and it worked.
Well, and I love that. And that makes me so happy because what I'm going to say next is at the basis of everything else I've shared thus far and what you just said. And that is, the title of the book that's coming out, the title of the TED Talk is How is This a Gift? Because here's the reality. I was an addict at the end of my life, ready to just throw in the towel. And at some point, I think subconsciously back then, I had to realize that that horrible life I was living was a gift because it was
Mhm,
so clear to me what I didn't wanna do anymore, how I
mhm,
didn't wanna live, and when you have that negative, if you say, "Well, how is this horrible tragedy a gift?" It points you immediately into the direction of a new life, a new vision, right? And I've had that experience 1,000 times where
mhm,
no matter if it's somebody's driving slow in front of me in traffic and I'm, like, about to lose it, and I'm like, "How is this a gift?" Maybe that traffic jam is slowing you down to make that phone call to your cousin who you haven't talked to in forever or something like that. But I've also had that moment where I had
mhm,
to coach myself because my
mhm,
son was diagnosed several years back, and it was a downward spiral of weeks and
mhm,
weeks and weeks. And I can remember one morning in the shower thinking to myself, what would I say to myself? What would I coach someone in right now?
mhm,
And I remember rolling my eyes at myself thinking I would say, "How is this a gift?" And
mhm,
immediately my thought is like, "How is a diagnosis a gift?" It's like
mhm,
you're angry. And I
mhm.
thought the second I asked that question, the second I asked that question, it was a 180 in my life. It was a complete 180 and I saw things and it was like a block of thought from God just, like, presented itself in front of me that was like, "Because of this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this." And I could not see any of it when I was focused on the tragedy of the diagnosis,
Mhm,
right? But
mhm.
how is this a gift is the most powerful question you can ask yourself, and it applies to every single thing in your life.
Yeah. I'm gonna have my husband listen to this because literally yesterday, it's so weird having this conversation with you. I said to him about parenting when we were talking about our daughter. We went on a hike yesterday. I was like, it's such a gift in these moments where you're like, you know, uh, it was funny because yesterday afternoon he goes, that really resonated with me, Michelle, that you said this is such a gift. But then it's kind of biting me in the butt because we're driving home last night from dance at like 9 o'clock, and our daughter's singing Taylor Swift. And he looks at me, such a gift, such a gift. And I'm like, no, it's not. Stop.
Stop singing
Stop singing that crap right now. No, anyway, so true. It was a bit. And
so
yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a
Yes.
pleasure. We're honored to have had you. You went, oh my God.
I was just thinking, I'm looking at the wall behind us or recording, and I think we're gonna have to put it up there. It's such a
Yes.
so we remind ourselves, hey, that's some of the takeaways from this I've had today.
I'm gonna like get a video of my husband. Literally yesterday, that was like the theme of our day. Is it's a gift, and he was like, "It's so true."
Yes.
It's like you just got to look at like the hour and a half drive to this, or the all of these things. This is a gift. All of this. This is just like a precious blessing and precious gift, and sometimes it resonates with people, and sometimes it doesn't. But
Yes, absolutely. But if you can ask yourself that, if you can start to just condition yourself, because, one of my favorite thought leaders is Robin Sharma, and he always talks about like brain tattoos, just those mantras, those things that like in those moments you just kind of pull out of your pocket and they work and they apply. And that is the one I hope your listeners walk away with, because if you can just in any moment of any negativity, choose to ask that question. It is the most empowering thing you can do, and you're literally it's almost like your brain's on this downward spiral loop that it gets stuck on in the negativity, and the second you ask that question, it's like zoom, it like spins off into a different direction, into a positive loop that allows you to find solutions and blessings and magical moments that when you're stuck on that other loop, you just can't see. So yeah, I hope that you guys take that and just run with it.
Oh, yeah, we will. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much again. You want to tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, I always say it's hard and easy at the same time. So Moira Kucaba, so I'm sure they'll have how to spell that somewhere, but
Mhm.
that's where you can find me everywhere on YouTube, MoiraKucaba.com, Instagrams, at Moira Kucaba. So everything's just Moira Kucaba. So super easy.
Great. Well, thank you, Moira. We so appreciate your time, and
Absolutely.
you've been such a gift for us today.
Oh,
We will meet you at some point. I just know it.
yes,
Yes.
for sure. Thank you guys so much for having me. This truly has been such a blessing.
Bye.